football teams, and I get the information from him when I'm sitting there watching games.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of history,
Let's take the ride here. We're
This,
we're, we're philosophizing. Me and my man Cleve. Uh honoring my pops and all those in that time frame. Yeah, man. I mean, uh, you had
so
me
I
with that.
tell the stories
Yeah.
to my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I tell them, they listen because this is I say, man, I know Lee can't be lying to me because the
But
way
it
he
just don't
tell,
click in.
yeah,
And
he
you
said the
find
way he be
yourself
telling them,
stuck sometimes
I
telling
tell you,
these
I know
stories
that
with
he's
some
telling the
friends,
truth, and
and
they
it's
ain't
not
listening.
it's not it's not affecting their, you're looking at them and you notice
I say,
they're
yeah,
not
I tell them all
emotionally
the stories,
struck at all when you sit back and you say,
about the bookstore. I tell them all
yeah,
the stories.
I remember, my daddy being one of those people when we were in Detroit during the civil rights movement. They had that shootout at the church. Well, my daddy was one of those people in that church, and me and my mama was huddled on the floor, um, while they was trying to defend themselves and us, uh, in Detroit in that kind of thing. There's a reason why I'm talking right now because, see, as my father exits this planet in his physical form, for the first time, a lot of that story can be told because my daddy was no joke. He was a killer. And, but that was my pops. And we lived the civil rights movement. And when I say, um, now I can actually tell the story of my mother and I, and probably my sister in my mom's womb at that time, were trying to huddle in a church, to try to keep ourselves from being shot. As my pops and my uncles and the rest of these crusaders were trying to defend themselves in this church that was basically what they thought to be a safe place for them not to have to use weapons. But oh, by the way, we're not dumb black folks. We're going to be at least armed. I remember reading an insert about Marcus Garvey and a person that lived in Texas that was from Louisiana that had heard about the whole Marcus Garvey movement back in that day. And we're talking, they didn't have AT&T or CNN. These people still heard about it enough that people came to hear Marcus Garvey speak at that time when he was on his speaking tour. And the church was packed full of black folks. They all came from all these different cultures and classes to see this man speak because, it's not the later Marcus Garvey that a lot of us really need to really, invest in some understanding. It's the earlier one because, the end result is not important right now, more so than the fact that that scene in that church was read by how the civil rights movement tried to move into when all those black folks in that church in Texas sat up there and all of a sudden somebody walked in the door and they said, okay, people, there are some white folks in uniform with guns that are threatening to stop this meeting by all means necessary. And Mr. Garvey said, okay, so what are we going to do about that? And each and every black person in that church stood up and held up a gun in their hand. And then that person went back out to tell those white folks with those guns and uniforms. Every last person in this church right here is armed, and all they're about to do is have a meeting. And uh, I would think that you would probably, let this one go. Well, that was the premise of how that event happened. But see, what gets me is just what my man Cleve was telling me about. What was how all these different people, that are being noted in these stories of the civil rights movement still exist, but we don't hear from none of these people. And we're wondering, why is it that I'm probably one of the few people right now talking about something, as a living testimony. I've flown planes and traveled and been able to identify calibers of bullets whizzing by my hair during the mid 60s, while most people were trying to figure out what they did in the mid 60s. And it's not that you have to pay attention or even consider this dude is full of shit. It's the fact that this is almost like part two of honoring my pops and all those people in there. Listening to my pops sit back and go, you know what? You know another thing I used to be jealous of you for? Hey, you as a kid were so fucking charming that you know who used to like you? Shirley Chisholm. You know who else used to like you? Queen Mother Moore. Every time she come through Pittsburgh, because where we lived, we were the only place in between Cleveland and the East Coast that you could find safety in our house, literally. And this was all because of my pops. I was just there for the ride. And I'm honoring my pops by way of actually letting it be known that, my pops is a killer. Anywho, um, it's not that he was a mean guy. He was actually one of those people that when they said, we are willing to defend ourselves by all means necessary. If it comes in between you harming my family and myself and my freedom, then by all the means of the Constitution of the United States, I'm within my rights to defend myself. I used to remember that as a slogan more than see Dick run, 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 see Spot, see Jane.
Oh man.
All because of my pops. All because of people like my pops. And it's not the fact that I'm trying to glorify my pops. I'm trying to figure out where the hell are all the other pops that ran with my pops and were kind of pops like too during this thing we call the civil rights movement. I sat back and I watched my pops talk about him and his buddy Nick Flournoy and how because of 6 degrees of separation, his buddy Nick Flournoy helped teach socialism to this Obama dude, Barack Obama dude, and he turned out to be a president. And here my pops is living proof of actually seeing that actual fruition come to order just because my black ass was on that stage when the first black president took the oath and spoke to the people. And out of every little black child in 1963 that was considered the possibility of actually being at least something more or less than somebody from the Hill District or from Homewood, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who'd have thunk it'd be me? Who would thunk it'd be my pops? Who would thunk that we're still uh, we're still losing a whole lot of this whole reality just because we want to be spoiled, and we are spoiled. We are people of color in the United States of America, which was formed by people of color, and people didn't find out that there was so much color until they figured out that we were here. By that time, we were as a country that changed, and then our money changed during the Great Depression, and all of a sudden, here comes my pops and a lot of other people like that. And I saw and I lived uh, by way of realizing and being able to spot and identify real, true people. When I first moved up here, I didn't get no love from nobody in Washington, D.C. And I remember running into this dude who was an ex FBI, ex Washington Police Department, ex uh, 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 the the inventor of the DC Dragons karate kung fu big thing and all of that, and uh, He sat back and I told him who my daddy's name was, and he was like, "Oh Lord, your daddy? Oh, you don't seem to understand, son. Let me tell you something. I done been an ex, this, that, and the other, so, and I'm going, yeah, yeah, fed, yeah, and he's going, hey, but two people in this world at this time that I can honestly say before God and everybody, pause, no homo, that I really honestly am scared shitless of and respect as a black man, a bad motherfucker, and he said, and that's Jim Brown and your daddy. Now, that guy didn't know me from Adam, and a lot of times, just because he was a Washingtonian and I wasn't, the end result came up a little bit different than the way this story is going right now. Uh, because I'm not my daddy's son by blood more than I'm my daddy's son because my daddy made me the way I'm is for being who he was. And everybody say it don't mean nothing about genetics, it's what you do. And and my daddy wasn't no fucking joke. And
The judge said, if you feed them
long enough they start looking like you. And lo and behold,
that's all right.
shit, you can say all that shit, but 50 years later, I'm honoring my pops. And man, I'm telling you some good shit. I got a chance to talk to my pop's older brother on the phone. He sat back. He said, "Let me tell you a story." He said, "Yo, daddy, we was watching TV one night up in Cleveland, and we got a special bulletin that said that this man had just been shot and was pronounced DOA at the hospital. And then we looked at the little thing, and then we said, oh my goodness, that's David." And so the family got up and they were ready to go down to the hospital to claim this motherfucker that was just claimed DOA. Now all of a sudden they get to the hospital and this motherfucker is walking out the goddamn door. Why? Because they resuscitated his ass and he got back up. And they said this ain't the only story of this kind of dude.
Did y'all have a weekly newspaper?
Well, back in that day, we didn't have nothing but Jet and black and white TV.
There's the weekly. The weekly still come out in New Orleans. So y'all didn't have a weekly newspaper.
Oh, back in those days, shit, you had to go to church to find out what happened in other neighborhoods.
So none of that was in the newspaper.
And what
that was in the newspaper.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, man. Yeah, the shootings used to go on
man.
in New Orleans.
Sometimes people need to look up Jet Magazine 1962.
Those old magazines, some of the local stories.
Yeah.
Most of the local stories, though, used to come from Detroit.
Yeah, or Chicago or New York or something like that. And so everybody knew about up north.
The hanging.
Yeah.
The Emmett Till and them stories.
Yeah, you get a couple of them. You get a couple of them. Yeah.
I don't know if the Al Green grits, that'd have to be in the Jet.
The Al Green thing came on the Jet and then it went to the radio. Just in the little tidbits of the little bitty extra things they used to snip it, where it used to be really interestingly done. Almost poetic. See,
the club shootings made the Jet.
Exactly. Well, sometimes they would. Sweet Daddy so-and-so in Harlem got busted, but they back open again. Yeah. These are things that, were really honestly how we grew up as a culture, and we're missing that. And we're missing being able to tell the story to everybody else who's trying to figure out, why can't we just get along? Well, hell, half of it is because we're not opening our minds or opening our mouths. And we're not getting fed.
The story
and now's
in
the time.
Orleans, what's the district attorney?
I got this strange feeling I'm gonna have to hit this one again.
I ain't gonna name, but his father was an art teacher.
Okay.
Down in New Orleans, that's Suno.
Okay, we're gonna start this one.